One of the things that I've learned being a pastor for 15 years or so now is that the 80-20 rule really is true. About 20% of the people do 80% of the work in churches. And oftentimes they feel overworked and underappreciated. Now we know we're doing stuff for the Lord, but the problem sometimes is that the things that we ask people to do in church are not core practices of the Christian faith. So when the church says we need people to help with fill in the blank, we think, really? I'm tired as it is. I'm worn out. I've been serving as hard as I can, and I feel overworked and underappreciated. Do you feel that way sometimes in ministry? That you've given all you can give and there's nothing left in the tank? You ever feel like you're running on empty? Maybe you're so busy at home, so busy at work that you got nothing left to give to church. Or maybe it's the opposite. I've had seasons in my life where I was so busy at church that I then had nothing left to give to my family. I came home each day running on empty. And I wasn't discipling my kids like I needed to be discipling them. I wasn't loving my wife like Christ loved the church because I didn't have any energy left. I was worn out. I'd given that to other people. I felt overworked and in some ways underappreciated. Jesus says, "Come to me all who are weary and burdened, heavy laden, and I will give you rest." The Apostle Paul reminds us in Galatians, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Let me encourage you in two areas. One, ask the Lord for the important areas in your life and in your church that really matter to the Lord. And then number two, ask the Lord for strength to serve in those areas that really matter. Ask Him to sustain you when you feel tired. Ask Him to give you courage when you feel discouraged. Because the reality is, oftentimes we don't see the fruit immediately. And one of the true marks of a disciple of Jesus is that our fruit often grows on other people's trees. Of course, you can't see what God is doing right there in the moment. No one really can. But in the end, in hindsight, we look back and say, wow, look what the Lord has done. And I didn't have to serve people in ministry. I got to do that. What a blessing that was. I think back on times in my ministry, and I think back to this mission trip that I went on in Mexico. And I remember I had stuff stolen from me. I had stuff vandalized that I'd brought with them. I got sick to my stomach. And I remember coming home thinking, was that at all worth it? And then I hear stories afterwards about what God did and about how He used even some small things like me leading worship at a camp in the desert in Mexico to influence these young people for the Lord. And that younger people that I took with me to serve on this mission trip fell in love with people there and fell in love with the gospel and found joy in sharing the gospel. So if today you feel overworked and underappreciated, I pray that the Lord would give you a new strength. I pray that your anxieties and those burdens that you're carrying in ministry, that you would give those over to Him, and that you would find a renewed joy in serving the Lord Jesus. God bless you today as you serve Him.